Welcome to SoulShift, where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life align to help you create a more joyful, balanced, and fulfilling life. I'm Mindy Gorman-Plutzer, and I'm here with my dear friend and amazing co-host, Ali Anderson. And today, we're talking about something that affects millions of people, chronic illness, the diagnosis that changes everything. The years of hospitals, medications, feeling like your body has betrayed you, the desperate search for answers when conventional medicine says, this is just how it is. You'll manage it, but you won't heal it. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if healing, real sustained remission, is possible? What if the body has the capacity to transform when we give it what it truly needs? Our guest today is living proof. Emilia Rizzuto is the founder of All Things Elderberry, a women-owned WBENC certified wellness brand, creating clean, effective immune support products. But before she was an entrepreneur helping families across the country support their health naturally, she was a 15-year-old girl who had just been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. She spent years in and out of hospitals before discovering the power of nutrition and lifestyle changes that would help her achieve long-term remission. With a certification in nutrition consulting from Bauman College, Emilia turned her personal healing journey into a mission, and today, her fresh pressed elderberry elixir, teas, and organic elderberry honey are trusted nationwide. Her story is one of patience, one of persistence, and the profound belief that our bodies want to heal when we give them the right tools.
Welcome to SoulShift, a sacred space where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life come together in perfect harmony.
Each week, we explore the gentle art of transformation. SoulShift holds space for your beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect human experience.
Meaningful change doesn't have to break you open. It can unfold softly, like morning light.
Together, we'll uncover tools that honor your truth, share conversations that touch your soul, and celebrate the exquisite complexity of what it means to be human.
Your presence here is a gift. Let's shift with grace,
with love,
together.
Emilia, welcome to SoulShift. We are so honored to have you here. And this is a conversation that is so personal for not only many people in our audience, but for Ali and myself, as we are both managing chronic conditions. So let's start at the beginning of your journey. You were 15 when you were diagnosed with Crohn's. It's such a formative age. You're becoming who you are, figuring out your identity, navigating high school, and suddenly you get this diagnosis.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. So yes, it was not a fun time. It was a really hard time. It was, like I said, formative years, and we didn't know what was happening for a long time. So for me, everything started with just like a basic mono diagnosis with Epstein-Barr virus. And once I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, I just was not able to get well. Then started having, more GI symptoms. And after quite a few months of testing, I finally got the diagnosis of Crohn's. So it was just the beginning of high school.
Yeah. And I can just imagine how that changed your life as a teen.
Oh, completely. I was actually a competitive figure skater when I was younger.
Oh, wow.
So I was no longer able to do that. It was just too stressful and too hard on the body. I did switch to hockey. Not that was better, but I needed to do something. So yeah, it just shifted everything. And I spent a lot of time in and out of hospital in the beginning, especially because we just couldn't get it under control. There was no biologics on the market at the time. They had like immunosuppressant medications, they had steroids, they had combinations of antibiotics. So that first year of trying to get and manage the disease was very hard. GI issues, they just drain you. I wasn't eating, I wasn't able to control my bowels. Like I was dehydrated, you're just weak. And then they put you on all these steroids. So you get like this giant like moon face and you break out and you're just like raging all the time in addition to your normal hormones. So it was tough, yeah. And you couldn't really tell anybody what was going on. I remember one time I was out of school for like a month, and when I came back, like the kid sitting next to me was like, "Oh, I thought you died." I was like, "Oh, no, almost, but I'm here." We talked about it earlier, Ali, there was no internet. You can't Google Crohn's disease. And it wasn't something so common. Nobody really knew what it was. I'd never heard of it before. Now, like, everybody's heard of Crohn's disease. It's kind of become pretty common, but back then it wasn't at all. So there was no easy resources for me to grab or read or talk to anybody. My parents and I were just kind of floating on our own, trying to figure it out and doing whatever the doctor said.
Yeah. What's interesting to me to hear is that I can only imagine how devastating it was for you at 15. But did you find any relief in finally having a diagnosis, having an answer for all your symptoms?
Not really, not at that time, because I think that time it was scary. And maybe it was just the way my doctor approached it. They basically said to me, like, this is chronic. You're going to have this forever. Like, there's nothing you can do. And here's like the list of medications you're going to be on forever. And so it didn't feel like relief. It felt like some kind of a sentence, permanent life sentence of dealing with this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there were years spent in and out of hospitals, right? On and off different medication protocols, following conventional protocols, of course, right? That's what we did back then. But at what point did you begin to realize that maybe there was another way, a better way worth exploring, right? So was there a turning point where you started to explore nutrition and lifestyle changes?
Absolutely. It took me a while. I was pretty rebellious. I was angry and, not happy with the world. And so I kind of went in the opposite direction for a long time and just did everything I was not supposed to do. Probably made my symptoms worse. And then it wasn't until I was older, I started kind of dabbling a little bit in health and wellness. Into my 20s, I was producing photo shoots and traveling a lot. So I was on the road constantly. But at that point, I started learning a little bit more about nutrition and health and wellness, but nothing really crazy until I became pregnant with my first son. So I was pregnant at 30 and I had another Crohn's flare. I was about, maybe 12 weeks, like early in the pregnancy, but I had a flare again. Everything that I've read, so that when you're pregnant, usually your symptoms are better. That's not what happened here. So I ended up having another flare back in the hospital. And when I was in the hospital, my OB was like, this is not my department. And the GI came in and was like, well, we'll just give you an extra dose of Remicade, which is what I was on at that time. It's a biologic. And so I was already on the highest dose for my size. They go by weight. Well, I'm already on the highest dose. And they're like, it's okay, we'll just give you like an extra dose and then another round of prednisone on top just to kind of get that flare under control. And that's when I kind of started panicking because I'm like, well, do we know what the long-term, effects are on the baby? And they said, well, they have about 10 years of data at the time because biologics were still fairly, they were not new, but, they haven't been around for hundreds of years. And so it was kind of scary. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to damage this child before it's even out? And at that point, I had to switch careers anyway because I was traveling so much. I was always on the road doing photo shoots. And so with the baby, I couldn't do that anymore. So I decided to just quit my job and go back to school and study holistic nutrition. And so that's when I went to Bowman College. And I really just did it for myself. I just thought, okay, there's got to be a better way. I was already kind of working with a naturopath, so I knew there were options out there. And, I kind of came to the realization that I need to be the one to do it. No one is going to hand me some kind of magic pill. Like, I'm going to have to do it. And so I just went back to school and started learning different protocols. And I started doing like autoimmune paleo protocol, just trying everything. I lived on like bone for like months, just trying all the things.
Yeah. So I guess the rebel in you had kind of taken a back seat at that point.
Yeah. It was not about me anymore.
Right.
It was like, oh.
Emilia, I can relate to your story so much. As I mentioned to you before, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition when I was 15 also. And I know that feeling of being a little overwhelmed when you're a teenager and you just wanting to be a teenager and do teenage life. And then all of a sudden you're dropped with this huge bomb of like, this is an autoimmune condition you're going to live with for the rest of your life. And it's a little bit scary to share with your peers. It's a little bit uncomfortable. You don't really know what your future looks like. So I can resonate with everything you said. And I can also resonate with like, so now I'm going to rebel against all of this. But at some point we all come back. And for me, it was a little bit after college when I came back to say like, okay, now it's time to take care of my body. I love that you went to Bowman College. I ended up following kind of a similar path too, with realizing that nutrition and lifestyle was a very important part of an autoimmune condition and studying it for myself and then starting to share it with other people. What did you learn about food and which food was sabotaging your health and which food was healing your health? And how did that process begin for you? And what changes did you decide to make?
There was a couple of major ones. Obviously gluten, we all hear about that one. But even for me, it was more like just all grains and a processed food. I think that's like the biggest thing. Like people don't realize, oh, well, this is gluten-free or this is whatever, So I feel like it went through phases. Like first you're like, okay, I'm going to be gluten-free and dairy-free. But then you start eating like all the gluten-free packaged foods.
Yes.
And then eventually you have to go through the phase of removing those as well. So food for me, we started to understand not only that it can hurt my body, but it's leaky gut and all of those things, but also that it can deplete me in other ways. So like when you're eating processed foods, you have to then use the minerals and enzymes in your body to digest all that. Whereas if you're eating an apple, it kind of contains everything it needs to digest itself. So it's just also an energy. Then you're losing more energy and losing more minerals. And, we need all that for all of our healing processes. And understanding that healing itself requires energy. So if you're digesting foods that you're having a problem digesting, or you're not eating real food, so the multiple layers, you're not getting the nutrition that you need, and you're pulling from your body the things that you need if you're eating processed foods. So then I basically just said, okay, we're just going to go down to bare bones, and I'm not going to eat anything processed. So if you think about it, it's almost easier in life. You're just eating meats, plenty of protein, all of the proteins basically, and then fruits and vegetables. Like that's it. I really don't eat grains. I really don't eat any of that stuff. Nothing fried, I just can't eat any of that stuff. And I think for me, that was the biggest thing when I started understanding that I need to bring in all of the nutrition to heal because I'm missing so much. And I can't also then deplete myself even more. If that makes sense.
Very well said. And don't you feel a little bit too, when you start eating like this, you crave these types of foods and you want to continue to eat these types of foods. And sort of the idea of eating processed foods becomes unappealing to you, right?
Yeah, it's like eating cardboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the gluten-free crackers, I'm like, I don't want to eat this. It's just not appealing to me at all. Like I get excited for this season right now where the oranges have those little nubs on them. I forget what they're called, but
Sumos. I think sumo. Yeah. I just bought a couple the other day. Yes. I love those too.
And obviously I don't cook a ton, but I've learned some basic things, some breakfasts that I like. And I also do some weird things like fermented goat's milk kefir and things like that I've included. But I feel like you can't start there. You have to start at the beginning. And this took me years. And I tell people that all the time, like, it took me years to get to where I am. And there was like layers and layers that I've had to peel and work through. And I have, go backwards and go forward. So this has been a journey for me for like 2 decades.
Yeah, exact same.
There's that huge emotional component also that comes into play. And as we said before, patience is so important, right? Especially, we live in a culture that wants quick fixes, immediate results. But healing from a chronic illness, real deep healing, takes time. But it also takes the willingness to connect to the wisdom of your body. Not only step outside of yourself and be an observer to what's going on, but also be able to dig deep to think about what your body needs in this world of quick fixes and be able to separate yourself from that and truly honor your bio-individuality and your uniqueness.
Yeah, I don't think you can heal without that. For me, I went to nutrition school and that was a major piece of it because you do have to heal, the gut and you have to heal the body and give it nutrition. Otherwise, it can't heal. But I also think that whatever brought on this illness energetically or emotionally or whatever you're carrying with you needs to be cleared. And there's different ways of doing that. People need to find their own way of doing that. And I know I learned tapping. I've gone all over the place and tried everything, breath work, all you can think of. I've tried them all. And I think they've all helped a little bit, because every single time you're kind of going into another layer. And I worked with an acupuncturist. I work with acupuncturists regularly, even still, because I do think there's energetic frequencies that need to be realigned and the meridians need to be realigned. So it's just so many layers built in there. And you have to really want to do that. I think for me, I ended up loving the journey. This became like my passion, like the things that I've learned. I'm just like, how do we not teach people this? Like we teach them everything but what they actually need. It's insane. Like I almost think like the only thing that you need in life is to learn all these energetic frequencies that we're talking about, like healing and how to, talk to your body and that your body actually exists. Like people don't even connect with their bodies. Like just breathing or even thinking about like the organs in the body or the blood flowing through. Like we don't think about those things. We just assume they just happen. But I think that if you're not connected, you can't get to that healing place.
It's entering into partnership with your body, basically. And the way you're describing all the things that you've gone through and brought into your life, I didn't hear anything that attached discipline to that. It really becomes joyful and opportunity, right?
Yeah, there's discipline too, though.
But it's a different kind of discipline.
Yes, I think in the beginning, there's a lot more discipline that needs to happen. because in the beginning, as you're starting to work through that, it's hard. It's hard. You're going out with friends, you're going out to eat, you're going to parties, the holidays are coming. You're the one that's like, okay, what is she not eating? What do we have to make for her? You have to bring your own food. There are some things that you need to learn along the way that you have to just adjust to. And that does take some discipline in the beginning. But then I think as you start moving through it, I always say to people, you have to become a different person. The person that got that illness no longer exists. I basically say to myself, like, I do not have Crohn's disease. That was a different person that was diagnosed. I don't carry that anymore with me. I've let that go. And that goes with fear and all the other things. You have to let that go because I know I've done so much work and have healed so much that there's no way this disease can live in my body anymore. I believe that to my core. And I think that's part of the process. It's our belief system has to really be there as well. Like whatever we tell our brain then gets transferred back into our body through the chemical reactions. So I think that's where a lot of it starts as well. Like I was telling you my diagnosis story when the doctor said to me, this is a chronic illness, you will have this forever. That was imprinted in me, and so I didn't believe that there was another option. It took me a long time to just clear that belief.
Yeah. And that was told to you probably one of the most impressionable periods of your life, right? Adolescence is where the most important thing is to feel that you fit in.
Yeah. And we were in New York. We went to a specialist in New York, and it's like this big deal Crohn's doctor. And so you just believe him.
Of course. And imagine back then, because I do have some experience with Crohn's with a family member, there really weren't any. I remember a very big Crohn's specialist in New York telling my daughter, doesn't matter what you eat, the best diet for Crohn's is no food at all.
Thanks.
That helps.
Yeah, exactly. We could go on and on about this, but yeah, I'm so in tune to what you're talking about, really. And then there's All Things Elderberry. So let's talk about that.
Well, that was an accident. I never imagined I would have that. So after I studied at Bowman College for about 3 years. I graduated with honors, and I started doing some nutritional consulting, like just working with some friends and some clients I got specifically for autoimmune. Because at that point, that's really what I was interested in. Hashimoto's was a big one that I was learning about. And then I realized I don't really love working with clients because I felt like the discipline piece was hard. People didn't want to do the work. And I didn't have patience at the time for it. I've gotten better since. They kept saying, well, I'm not going to cook this, or I'm not going to eat that, or I don't want to do this. And so I started actually doing some cooking. I started cooking some bone broth and then sell them the bone broth in addition. And as I was going through all that, I had little kids, they were toddlers. And so they would bring home all the illnesses, everybody was always sick. And that was a part that I was still struggling with my immune system, because I think that from all of the immunosuppressant medications that I was on and all of the steroids, I had destroyed my immune system. I was getting hair follicle infections and just weird things all the time. So I realized I really need to heal my immune system. And I started doing some research and found elderberries. And because I was in Missouri, I was able to source from a local farm. We have 700 acres growing here commercially. And so I got fresh elderberries, local honey, just started brewing this for myself. And I already had a brand that I was doing consulting under. So I had pretty logo and bottles. And I just made these little bottles and packaged them pretty. And I gave them out to my neighbors. And one of my neighbors was like, oh, there's a crafted in St. Louis, mommy group. You should try to post it on there. And I posted it on there. And the first day, no joke, I had 300 messages where people were like, oh, I want that. I want that. I want that. And that was it. That was where hard left turn. And I just started fulfilling orders. So I just started saying, okay, well, I'll make it. And I would cook during the week and do meetups on the weekends. In my car, I'd say, okay, everybody meet me at this parking lot. And, I'd have their order ready in a bag. And after, some time doing that, my husband kind of followed me and was like, you can't, no. He's like, you're going to get jumped. We're from New York. So of course he's like, you're going to get mugged. Everyone knows you're at this parking lot every Saturday collecting cash. So it kind of pushed me to go into the local health food store, and I talked to the woman there, and she showed me what a label looks like and what I would need to do. And little by little, I just started renting kitchen space, hired all my friends to come help me brew and bottle. And we did that for about a year. And as I kept growing the amount of stores and farmers markets and things I was doing, then I just found manufacturing, still smaller manufacturing, just continued growing. And so never really imagined it would be this. I always joke around, I'm just chasing it as it just keeps growing. I just keep figuring it out.
Well, I'm not surprised at all that it's growing. I mean, what a beautiful product and what a gift you're giving to all of us, especially those of us with kids. Like you mentioned, the kids and the viruses they bring in. I mean, the amount of teaspoons of elderberry I have fed to my 3 kids over the years, it's a lot, and to my husband and myself as well. So I'm really grateful for this product. I love that you use this as a turning point, right? Like you turned your pain into a purpose. I love that you're spreading that and sharing that with others. I'm curious, how do you do this as a busy mom and an entrepreneur? What are some of your non-negotiables that you keep in your back pocket in order to keep your autoimmune condition in remission, right? Because all three of us know living with a chronic condition, you got to take care of yourself first.
Yeah, stress is a big trigger. Well, I'm not perfect every day, I'll be honest with you. As the company's growing, it does get harder. I have some friends that are helping me in the business, and sleep for me is a number one priority. Like, I do not negotiate on my sleep. If I'm not driving kids around in the evening, like, I'm going to bed. On the weekends, I'd rather not go out maybe and go to bed. I don't really drink. That's just something like, even if we're out socially, I'll have like a Pellegrino in a fancy wine glass just because the alcohol takes a toll on me too. So I've cut some things out that I know. We invested in like a PMF mat with like a heat healer on top of it. So I've got red lights and sauna in there. I kind of go escape in there when I need to. And the diet is non-negotiable, so even if I'm stressed out, I'm not going to be eating a bag of Doritos. I may sit at my counter eating a bunch of oranges or something. So there's certain non-negotiables like the food, the sleep, and then the recovery. Getting to the gym, just keeping my body strong as we age. I think that's very important. Keeping that muscle tone is huge. I wish I can tell you I have this amazing practice of meditating for an hour every day, and it's just not my reality. I just do what I can to kind of maintain. And then I also know my body well enough to know that when I'm starting to feel a little off, I will shut it down and I will take time and I will rest and I will maybe do a little bit more of a fast with some bone broth and kind of, heal. I also do go to like a local IV place and get nutritional IVs very regularly because I know it's so hard to get the nutrition that we need, just the way that our food is grown in the soil. And I don't absorb, B vitamins as well because like where I was diagnosed with Crohn's was by the ileum, so it's ileitis. So that's kind of where the B12 uptake is. So I do blood work pretty regularly. I check my levels. I'm good on my vitamin D. Like there's certain things that I know really affect chronic illness and certain minerals I need. I just make sure that I do those. I take supplements that have liver in them because I know I need those. So I'm on top of it.
You sure are. And you are on top of it. You have so many wonderful wellness practices that keep your body healthy. I love that. But I also love that you said, I don't do it perfectly. And you wrap yourself in a hug and you say, I'm doing the best I can do given where I am right now. Right. And I think that's what we're all doing. We're all doing the best that we can do given our current life circumstances. And one of the beautiful things we all need to do is wrap ourselves in a hug and say, I'm doing this much and this is amazing. And then on top of that, you've created this product, All Things Elderberry. And I'm sure that's in your warm place in your soul to say, like, I'm sharing this with the world. They get to use this product and it's going to help their overall wellness as well. So I think all of that together keeps you healthy and keeps your mind healthy and your body healthy and your soul healthy.
Yeah, and it's soulful purpose too. You're spreading not only your healing message, but the actual healing elements you're sharing. I can't think of a greater gift.
Thank you. Yeah. And as I learn more and more about the plant itself, I'm more amazed by it, just its mystical powers and like its ancient history. And now they're studying it for brain health and weight loss. And so it goes so far beyond just cold and flu. People think of it as an antiviral because that's what it does, destroys the virus's ability to enter the cell and replicate. But in reality, it's just so much more than that. It's such a magical plant that's so energetically powerful. So that's become kind of cool too, to like learn the history of the plant and connect to it that way.
Could you briefly describe that for our listeners, the mystical and magical powers of the elderberry?
So there's a couple little fun things, like they used to plant an elderberry bush in the front of everybody's house. And they would say there's a little fairy called Eldermore that lives in it that would protect the house. And then the wand from Harry Potter, that's the elder wand. So it's made from the elderberry plant as well. I consider the most powerful wand. And the plants themselves, like energetically, are incredibly amazing. So even if you're trying to mow them down or get rid of them, like they just come back even like bigger and better. So they're just a really, hardy plant. Like the farmer that didn't want the plant anymore, and he had to literally dig a lake to get rid of this plant. It was like, no, it just rooted, and it provides flower and berries and the leaves. Like so many parts of the plant are medicinal. It truly is an incredible plant. And in history, Hippocrates said, elder is the medicine chest.
And metaphorically, I love how you talked about the roots.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's grounding. It's rooted in there. It spreads. It's amazing from so many levels.
So tell us about the products that you offer in your line.
So the main product is our elixir. That's like our hero product. That's where it all started. And that is the one that I source locally. So I work with a lot of farmers now. We have kind of like a great chain. They're all grown organically. And it's a fresh pressed juice, like a first press. So the berries from the season are actually pressed into a juice, and we use that juice. And we add ginger, cinnamon, clove, some honey. So it's really, really clean. And then we've created a gummy, which was our second product, because so many people just kept saying, oh, I just buy a chewy at Walmart. Like I would do farmers markets and events, and I can't tell you the amount of people that would say, oh no, I'm not going to drink that. Like I just buy a chewy. And I was like, a chewy? Okay. So they're referring to like a gummy. And so then the second thing we created was the gummy. And then, as I did more markets, I heard, oh, you should make a tea. And so I created a green tea. It's a elderberry green tea with hibiscus and orange peel. And then we thought it'd be fun to do a chai tea. So the chai tea has elderflower in it with fennel, ginger, and cinnamon. So it's more of like a really nice gut soothing kind of tea. And the elderflower is great for respiratory health, digestive health. It's another way to use the plant. And then we did a brew kit. The brew kit's our newest one. I'm kind of excited about it. So it comes in like a brew bag with elderberries, ginger, cinnamon, and clove. And you can just put it in water, boil it, and strain it. And you make your own elderberry syrup that's completely unsweetened. So that way, if someone is diabetic, is on a keto diet, vegan, they can sweeten it with any way they want to. So it's a little bit more customizable.
Fantastic. And I have to say, because I was on the website ordering my elderberry, the gummies were sold out.
I know. So, what's crazy is that we planned like a 20% growth for the gummies, and we sold out 8 months in advance. They just took off faster than we could have expected. And so, we have to have them made for us, and we're in the queue. We had orders in based on what our projections were. It was pretty awesome, and also not awesome, because now we're waiting.
That's great. And you have a special offer for our listeners, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Shop 20 will give your listeners 20% off anything they want on the website, so they can try it and, try everything, see which one works best for you.
Oh, it's great. Can't wait to get mine. Really can't wait. So before we close, what are the key takeaways you want listeners to hold on to? Truths that you want them to carry?
Absolutely. So patience, like we talked about earlier, I always say, it takes time. Like people are like, oh, I've been doing a diet for like 3 months. I mean, no. There's like 6 months to a year. It takes a lot of time. So be patient with yourself, be loving to yourself. Consistency is very important. Be consistent. I just think it's important to honor your body and listen to yourself and love yourself. Like it all comes from inside you. Like any healing, anything that you want, it's got to come from inside. It's not going to come from the outside world handed to you. You got to do it on your own.
Yeah. And then you also speak to empowerment, right? That, we have more control than we've been told.
Yep, we've been lied to. We have all the control.
Yeah, once we connect and once we learn to listen.
And we are powerful healing beings. Like our body knows how to heal, and we have the power to turn that healing on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with such honesty and hope and grace. I love your gentle energy. It's very inspiring. And of course, the reminder that healing is possible, that our bodies have that capacity for transformation, but we have to support them properly. That's on us.
That's on us. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so very much.
Emilia, thank you. Thank you for everything today. Yes.
My pleasure. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you guys too.
So everyone can find you at allthingselderberry.com.
That's the website for the brand. Yeah. And then on social media, Emilia M. Rizzuto or All Things Elderberry.
Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful. And I also want to remind our listeners about one thing that you said that should be a non-negotiable. It's not about perfection, right? It's about progress, and it's about small, consistent, use that word, consistency, choices that support our body's innate wisdom and healing capacity, right? So start somewhere, stay patient, trust the process.
Yeah, the time is going to go by anyway. So that way, by that point, you're that much better.
Absolutely. And as we always say here on Soul Shift, small shifts create big transformations. And sometimes the smallest shift, adding in one nutrient-dense food at a time, prioritizing 1 hour of sleep, incorporating one supportive supplement, can be the beginning of profound healing. So I've already ordered mine, as I shared, and I want to remind our listeners to use code SHOP20 at allthingselderberry.com. Support your immune system, support your life, and do it naturally. And if this episode gave you hope, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're new here, welcome to Soul Shift. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and join us every week as we explore healing, transformation, and the beautiful intersection of science and soul. So until next time, keep shifting your mind and keep igniting that beautiful soul of yours.
Thank you for sharing the sacred time today.
We hope something in this conversation touched your heart
And offered nourishment for your soul's journey.
Remember, transformation is most effortless when it happens one tender shift at a time.
Until next week, we invite you to carry one insight from today into your life.
Not as a task.
Think of it as a superpower to yourself.
If something resonated, we'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment below.
Your words ripple outward, offering connection and comfort to others walking this path beside you.
If SoulShift feels like home, please subscribe and consider leaving us a review.
Your support will help us reach more hearts that need to hear they're not alone.
We're holding you in love, so know you're not alone. Your journey matters.
May your heart be filled.
And may your path be filled with grace.